Okay, let's do this one last time. Hi, my name is Jordan, and I love Sonic the Hedgehog. Ever since I was conscious enough to discover my ability to like things, Sonic has always been at the forefront of my mind, and will probably be forever in my heart. 32 years. 32 years of a career of the blue blur. And we've seen him endure all the ups and downs and all-arounds during that time. But here's my problem. I've always loved Sonic, but I've never fully really been able to understand why. When something's been such a big part of your life for so long, you want to have a solid reason or motivation behind loving such a thing. So I've decided to go on a trip, to take myself on a long and comprehensive journey through the legacy of Sonic the Hedgehog, playing through all the games, at least the mainline ones to start. Maybe someday I might throw in my opinions on the shows and movies as well, but for now I'm just going to stick with Sonic's bread and butter. Intro aside, let's press start and begin. So, back in the late 80s, if you were playing any game worth talking about, you were playing it on a Super Nintendo. Super Mario Bros., Legend of Zelda, Mega Man, cult classics we all know and love today were the innovative moneymakers taking the world by storm in the late 80s. I'm not going to make this series too historical as we go along, but I bring these points up to say that when talking about the Sonic games, starting of course with the first one, I didn't want to just give you a review of the first game that you've probably heard over a million times at this point. If you want my quick and general opinions, I think Sonic 1 as a whole is okay as far as Sonic games go. I will always respect it for being the first of its kind and introducing us to the blue blur that speeds across those green hills. But there are some hits and misses along the journey that is Sonic 1. It's a game that is comfortable. Playing through it definitely feels like a journey or adventure across a sprawling mystical island, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. For this video, I wanted to focus on the core foundation behind why Sonic 1 worked and still works as well as it did upon its release back in 1991. I took some time to do some research into the first game's development to figure out what exactly was it that inspired this game, this proof of concept, enough to be brought to life and mass-produced for the world to see 32 years and going. During an interview on the subject, Sonic's programmer, yeah, that one, described that his original goal or intention when creating this game was to develop a character that could traverse across a 2D environment faster than the leading competitor at the time, Mario. So, in order for me to fully understand and appreciate Sonic 1, I need to start at the beginning. Nay, before the beginning. We need to start with... I'm going to spend the rest of this video comparing and contrasting the strengths and weaknesses of these two games to each other. I mean, Sonic gained momentum and success by competing directly with Mario to begin with, so what better way to begin a look back through the Sonic series with starting with Super Mario Bros. A game that I still cannot beat. My goal was to play only a little bit of Mario to get as far as I could in one sitting, or maybe a few sittings, in order to have enough experience to draw from to make a solid comparison between Sonic and Mario's first respective outings. Both games are 2D platformers, obviously, but what I never realized before is just how profoundly similar these two games are to each other. I mean, they're formulaically basically the same game, just one looks a little prettier than the other. I'm playing this through the mind's eye of Yuji Naka at the time when he was coming up with the ideas for his new game to take Sega to the top of the video game industry, or at least right in line with the competition. Both games feature our characters traveling across various obstacle courses while facing a barrage of enemies and saving the less powerful creatures from a maniacal tyrant seeking to conquer the world. Well, at least one of them is. But beyond the surface, when you really stop and think about it, there's a lot of things here that Mario did that I always assumed or thought were original concepts from Sonic. Like how there's an ending jingle that plays when you reach the goal or complete a level. Followed by a score tally that increases depending upon how fast you completed the level. Your lives, collectible count, score, and timer all sit at the top of the screen to keep the player's eyes oriented on the ground below or directly in front of them. There's an intro screen before the start of each level. In Mario, the levels are titled as World 1-1, 1-2, 2-3, etc. We have a world system and a numeric set of 4 different levels to clear before moving on to the next world. But these worlds aren't all necessarily connected. In Sonic, levels are instead referred to as zones, with 3 distinctive acts using the same level themes within that zone. Sonic moves on to new zones by completing only 3 acts, whereas Mario you have to complete 4. Even Mario and Sonic's jump effect sounds similar. Along with the coin and ring sounds. While there are a lot of similarities between these two games, Sonic wouldn't be Sonic without the key things that make him different. For starters, Sonic is blue. Mario's platforming traversal is very blocky. His movement requires a lot of stop-and-go platforming that requires you to play it safe and almost go through the trial and error of trying to train yourself into memorizing the level layouts and practicing enough times to know what's coming up ahead and being nimble enough to dip and dodge your way in a bit of a gauntlet until you reach the end. He has power-ups laid throughout the level in these various item boxes, but all of these do come with certain stipulations. You need a basic mushroom to be able to survive past taking 1 hit from an enemy. However, in order to gain said mushroom, you have to accommodate for it moving away from you on its own, and you only have access to its abilities should you be lucky enough to catch it in time. Same goes for the Fire Flower. Although it's more stationary and it provides more offensive capabilities, it still requires you to not only open the box to access it, but to furthermore climb atop the box to gain the power-up. There are moving platforms and some implied branching pathways here and there in Mario. In some levels, taking the top-oriented path helps the player reach the goal a lot faster, effectively jumping over most of the difficulties that come with the bottom path. But regardless of which path you take, bottomless pits are your worst enemy in this game. The levels are designed in such a way to where the game of it is to pit Mario's physics against the open floor plan that is the level design. It's almost like you're essentially jumping across rooftops, and the minute you fall down to the ground, you're going to die. His boss fights are also a little lackluster. In this playthrough, I wasn't able to reach Bowser while holding on to my Fire Flower, so I can't talk about attacking him in that respect. Besides, I think visually this is a more accurate representation of their respected sizes anyway. But it's the same rinse and repeat cycle with Bowser each time. Jump on the platform, hit the axe, and he's dead when the bridge collapses. Obviously, I'm sure the boss battles do get more and more difficult over time, but it doesn't necessarily feel like there's much of a real fight going on here when comparing it to Sonic. Speaking of which, probably the biggest difference between these two games that I could notice right off the bat were the visuals, specifically the depth of field in the background. Mario's levels are built on a very two-dimensional plane. You have the flat layer of ground, the sky above it, along with the occasional level decor that tiles horizontally across the level. It's very simple. Sonic, on the other hand, even just taking a look at Green Hill Zone or really any of these backgrounds, and you can see that visually there's already so much more going on here. Green Hill has the grass ground floor and the checkerboard soil below, but even within that soil there are tunnels, caves, and different rock formations, all implied and shown throughout the level layout. Green Hill Zone isn't just a background or a set of assets to fit in Sonic's theme. The beauty of the environment lies within all of these naturalistic environmental elements working together and being designed for Sonic to seamlessly traverse through them as the indestructible, quick-moving blue ball that he is. The background has a pixelated ocean that's drawn more blurry the further back you go. The size of the mountains in the far distance and the implied forestation in between. All of this below the endless blue sky. The sprite work within this first level alone adds so much more depth of field in this 2D game. Gameplay-wise, the best way I can describe this difference, controlling Mario feels like playing a game. Controlling Sonic feels like playing an experience. Like I mentioned earlier, with Mario, I feel like his control was very blocky and stop-and-go movement. He has a run button that gives him a boost of speed, which, if timed right, can help him jump farther and cover larger distances, and sometimes this is required to overcome obstacles and challenges in level progression, But with Sonic, he's not designed to simply go faster or go slower across a map. His speed is more of a natural progression, a sensation that you have to earn rather than deciding when or when not to use it to beat the level quicker. With Sonic, it's all about the physics, and properly maneuvering his physics and natural abilities against his unique terrain to gain that sense of exhilaration. I'll also say that Sonic is more approachable as a protagonist and as a character, or at least he's drawn in a way that is more oriented towards you, the player. Mario's idle position has him facing deadpan, out of the world that he's about to embark across. Sonic's idle pose is drawn from almost a half diagonal. His eyes might be looking towards what's ahead, but his body is positioned to almost facing the player directly. It's a very small, barely noticeable difference, but these little nuances that make Sonic more compelling as a game character, in my opinion. Another part is, like I mentioned earlier, Sonic has actual fighting and combat mechanics used in his gameplay. Base level Mario can only attack enemies and defend himself from the bottom. Sonic, on the other hand, can use the entire circumference of his body to attack his enemies. From above, the sides, or below, base level Sonic doesn't need added power-ups or special abilities that change his capability of taking on enemies and obstacles in his way. Sonic has items and some certain power-ups that are similar to Mario, but these are more like tools he uses as opposed to survival necessities. Boss fights also feel like actual fights in this game. There is a learning curve with each boss and a strategy you have to develop to beat Dr. Robotnik each time and navigate to how to overcome his different weapons and machines. To me, this is more innovative than just pressing one button and then the battle's over. At the end of the day, both of these games garnered amazing success and separate cult followings over time as their respective legacies took form over the last 32 years. As a kid, I dreamed of the day where we'd get to see Mario and Sonic crossover in the same game, let alone have two separate and successful film franchises by major Hollywood production studios. For me, Sonic will always be my number one, my true blue superhero. Playing Mario is fun and all, and it's good to see what the competition had to offer at the time, or at least play the game that was partially responsible for Sonic's creation in the first place. But while there are a ton of similarities, the difference make me love Sonic even more. Sonic the Hedgehog is a pure work of art, in that it was inspired by something good that came before it, and turned out to be something great within itself, or at the very least, the start of great things to come. That is where I will leave things off for today, guys. Let me know what you think about Sonic 1. Do you love it? Do you hate it? In the next video, we're going to be taking a look at Sonic CD. Until then, have yourselves a great day.